Welcome to Pistons Jack Chats, where I'll have a guest from the Pistons and NBA community each and every week to discuss your Detroit Pistons. Before we get started, if you haven't already, if you could please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below, I'd be super grateful. It just helps keep the channel growing and the content flowing. So appreciate all of you. Uh, but let's get to it. Today, I have a very, very special guest. I have the Athletics Detroit Pistons beat reporter, Hunter Patterson, joining me. Hunter, what's going on, my man?
Nothing much. I appreciate you. Before I was even in Detroit, I let you know I was familiar with your work and everything. So I'm glad to be joining the show.
Oh man, I appreciate that so much.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. When I saw, because yeah, I think I watched some of your podcasts with Anthony at Pistons Talk, and a lot of Pistons fans were really excited to see who's going to replace James Edwards. And I think you're doing an amazing job so far. And I think we're very
Thank
lucky to
you.
have you, man. It's been awesome. I'm going to get to some of your recent articles because I've been absolutely loving it. Um,
I appreciate that.
but first of all, man, so I know you were in Sacramento, or you're
Hmm.
from California originally, I believe. But how are you settling into life in Detroit, in Michigan?
It's been fun. We've been traveling a lot so far. I've been able to go to each road game since I've been there, and I got there like mid November, November 15th, I want to say. Um, but it's been fun. The people are nice. I like the food. Downtown has really been a lot of fun as well. So I would say I'm adjusting to the cold decently because I lived in New Jersey for 1 year, my first year out of school. So it's been a bit of an adjustment, but it's not too bad. So overall, I would say I'm loving Detroit so far.
I love it, man. Yeah, that's like one thing people have been saying to me. They're like, I've never been to the snow. So
Yeah,
people are like, bro, pack your warm clothes because
for sure.
it's different apparently. So that's so cool to hear, man. And how long have you been there now? Because we've been kind of chatting back and forth a little bit since you started with the Athletic, but a couple of months now or something like that.
Yeah. So in Detroit or with the Athletic?
Um, in Detroit.
Okay, yeah. So it's been just a little bit over a month, maybe like 5 weeks, I would say. I think I got there on the 14th or 15th of November, and I think today is, I don't even know, like the 22nd, 23rd. So a little bit over a month.
I love it. And you kind of hinted at there. So how long have you been with the Athletic for? And is this the first time? Because I know you did some stuff with the Kings, I believe, before this.
Hmm.
Is this the first time you kind of travel with the team and I guess being a beat reporter every single day and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I started with the Athletic in 2021, November of 2021. So it just made about 3 years, and I started as an editor on our news desk, so pretty much helping out with all of our sports. I remember one time, I think it was there were like Winter Olympics, and I was doing something on bobsledding, so uh, kind of doing just a little bit of everything. And in that time, I picked up Kings coverage because I moved to Sacramento, and obviously we have Sam Amick, who's a national writer who's stationed in Sacramento and has ties to the Kings. Also Anthony Slater, who covers the Warriors, but is also just really tapped in with the Kings. So I wanted to try to be there as often as I could, but I wasn't able to go to every game. I didn't travel with the team. So I to answer that later question, this is my first time officially being on the beat and being able to travel with the team on the road and get that experience. So it's been a blessing and a lot of fun so far.
I love it. Well, my next question is going to be, what's kind of been your biggest highlight so far of kind of this new job for you so far? Maybe something you didn't expect or something that it's just stood out to you the most.
I think for me, I'm a really social person, which is kind of why I got into journalism. I like talking to people, understanding them, and so for me, initially working from home and having all of majority of my interactions with coworkers be through Slack and Zoom and things like that, and to go from that to now, I'm spending time around the other beat writers and interacting with a lot of the players consistently, and so it's funny to essentially go from not getting to interact with your coworkers to your coworkers essentially becoming the Pistons players and the other writers and everything.
No, that's so cool, man.
Hmm.
And like some of the coverage you've been getting at practices and that kind of stuff. I know as a fan and I guess a content creator, like I appreciate it a lot. You've been doing an awesome job.
I appreciate
So
it.
um, I
Yeah.
guess one thing I wanted to ask. So originally, before I kind of got into the content space and more of like a fan point of view, I actually wanted to be a writer of some sort.
Hmm.
And for anyone that might be watching this that wants to get into the industry of sports journalism, uh, what would be like your biggest piece of advice, or the best piece of advice you could give someone?
That's a good question. I think initially I would say, like right off the bat, just adaptability and being open to different forms of journalism. Because for me at LMU, I did a lot of play-by-play coverage. I had a radio show. I Once I got to USC for grad school, I was doing a lot of on-camera stuff. I was reading off the teleprompter, doing live shots and things like that. So I wasn't too interested in writing. I had always been um, to a certain degree interested, but it wasn't something that I necessarily thought that I would want to do consistently for work and as a career. But yeah, opportunities presented themselves, and I ended up getting more into it after I graduated, actually. So though I had been writing in school pretty consistently, it wasn't something, like I said, that I was super passionate about until I graduated. So um, if I had been kind of closed minded in wanting to always just be on camera and use my voice on radio and podcasts and things like that, then I may not have been open to what I'm able to do now.
I love it. I think that's such great advice.
Thank you.
Especially with like the way the industry's going, like you have to be adaptable. So, um,
Hmm.
no, that's awesome. I kind of want to get into the team now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I You do cover the Detroit Pistons, which I'm sure everyone's really keen to hear your thoughts. Um, Overall thoughts on the team so far. The 12 and 17, 10th in the East. Kind of based on your expectations maybe before the season to where they are now. Yeah, just
Hmm.
your overall thoughts on where they're at.
I'd say they exceeded my expectations to this point in the season. I hadn't watched them a ton. I knew Cade was pretty good, well, like really good, because one of my best friends is really into high school basketball and college and NBA, of course. But he had told me about Cade a while ago, so I had been pretty aware of him, but not. I hadn't watched as closely, obviously, as I am now. So I didn't think that they would be too competitive, and to see that even in a handful of their losses, it's been by maybe a possession or 3 points within the range of five, maybe. So I think they have losses that could have been wins to put them roughly around 500. But even for them to be 12 and 17, like you said, I think that's um, obviously an improvement from last season and something that they can continue to build on.
For sure. No, I'm with you. They are still ahead of where I thought they would be.
Hmm.
Like last season was, man, you talk to any Pistons fan, especially the ones that are probably watching this and read all your articles every day, man. That really was gave us some sort of PTSD.
Yeah,
So,
I could
uh,
imagine.
like I as much as I love this team and I like it's honestly all I live and breathe it, like it's never affected my mental health until that
Hmm.
losing streak. Like normally I'll
Oh
watch a
man.
game, bro, and like, I can just detach. I'm like, I get very emotional, but I can detach. But it's like
Hmm.
during that losing streak, I was like, oh wow. It was like there is zero hope. I've never felt
Yeah.
that with the sports team, bro. It was crazy. So I'm so with you there, ahead of expectations. And I think for some of the fan base, like I think they're starting to level out with expectations. Whereas early
Hmm.
on, I think the goalposts shift a bit too quickly, and fans were very reactive after every game. I put my hand up. I was too. But I
Yeah.
still think they're ahead of where a lot of people would have thought, which has been nice to see. And good for you as well coming at this point of the season, because I can't imagine
Definitely.
trying to do content last year on this team. Like,
Yeah, I remember vividly too. Like there was a
yeah,
close game they had, I want to say, in Boston against the Celtics,
yeah.
and it looked like they may have a chance to break the streak there. And that was the one game I do remember watching, and Cade was, I think, pretty competitive that game as well. But they lost, and I was just like, man, that's got to be tough. Yeah,
I mean, like like I don't like talking about this, but I never thought I would see the Detroit Pistons have fans chanting "Sell the team," wearing paper bags on their head. Like that's
yeah.
something that will stick with me for a while. But I'm very glad those days are behind us. But um, moving on, you touched on Cade Cunningham, and you got some awesome
Mhm.
quotes from him following the Phoenix Suns game, where
Thank you.
I feel like he kind of stamped his authority as an all-star. But
Mhm.
just with Cade himself, like on the court, he's taken his game to another level. But just being around the team, I mean, myself, I feel like I've noticed him step up as a real vocal leader on the court this season. I
Mhm.
know you weren't around the team last year, but what's it been like seeing him at practice and maybe behind the scenes and just his terms of his leadership, and because it feels like he's stepped up in that area this season.
Yeah, I think he's funny because he's only 23 and he's uh really, I think he does a good job of being a professional, and I guess part of that is not necessarily showing his personality as much because he is being professional. But like behind the scenes and around his team, and when there's not cameras around and stuff, he's a really personable guy. He's talking just as much as anybody else, and so he doesn't really show the personality, I don't think, as much, but he's like really lively. Um, and I remember JB earlier in the season, he mentioned how empathetic Cade was because he has kind of a knack for knowing what his teammates in the moment need, as far as Malik Beasley coming off a pin down, that might be like the best way to get him going. And so he knows those things for each players. Um, it's not just like he talks to the starters. He has people he like. I think him and Duren are like really close, but like he's talking to Bobby when they're in the locker room. He's talking to Wendell and Marcus and guys who maybe don't play as much. So he's a good leader from what I've seen.
No, it's I'm with you. Like even when he got drafted, I'm like, how is this man 19 years old?
Yeah.
Like when I was 19, forget about like the physical traits. Like it's just like where I was so immature. But
Same.
like it's crazy. Like I'm just like these guys are like, but I feel like Cade specifically, I know this word gets thrown around, but there's an aura about him that's like
Hmm.
he's like such a professional, and it's like it's crazy. Like just when he speaks, like even his voice. Anyway, I'm getting too into it now, but like
That's
there's
all
really
good.
something about him, bro. Like so, that's cool to hear. And just his on-court play. I think today he was just awarded Eastern Conference Player of the Week.
Hmm.
In the month of December, he's averaging 25.7 rebounds, 12 assists, 50% shooting, 40% from three. Like, I did not expect this type of leap from Cade. I thought this would be like year six, Cade Cunningham. We're kind of
Hmm.
in year four. A lot of people say year three because of the injury. Just on the court, like, thoughts on his game this season and seeing him live in person.
I think one thing people may not realize too is just he's bigger than he may look on TV most times. He's definitely 6'6". He's uh he's not like too big or bulky or anything, but he's just taller than you might expect. And I think the way he's processing the game this year is super advanced. And even talking to him in some of the conversations we have in the locker room and post game and stuff, like you can tell he really loves basketball and watches it. I would assume we haven't talked as much about how much he watches, but um, I would assume he's definitely like a league pass guy who's watching constantly. But he just processes the game really at a high level for him to only be 23, and I think there's so much upside for him to continue to be a cleaner, I guess, more efficient facilitator. It's not, he does turn it over a good amount, but I feel like he's kind of cleaned that up a bit in recent games. So I think just his playmaking is what's stood out to me most. I know he can score. He's at like, I believe 24 a game now. So that part is easy for him. But just his playmaking is really special to me.
Couldn't agree more. And like I think this team is at its best when he is around this 10 assist mark that he's at.
Hmm.
Because like you said, scoring for him I feel like is easy, but when
Yeah.
he's getting the rest of his team involved and like making the defense have to honor them, his teammates, like that's when it's like, wow, this Cade Cunningham is like he can actually be like a number one or 1B type of guy, I believe, on like a top four Eastern Conference team. And
Yeah.
I think that gives him more energy on the defensive end as well when he's not taking the
Hmm.
scoring load as much, which I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on his play at that end because I think he's really stepped it up there this season as well.
Yeah, to one point too, I actually asked him one time if he prefers to score or assist, and he actually did say he likes being able to assist because he compared it to. Apparently, he says he was a good quarterback in high school. I think it was either quarterback or receiver, but I believe it was quarterback. Um, but he compared it just to a quarterback throwing a dot to their receiver. But defensively, he seems like he gets more engaged as the game gets into the moments where it's on the line a bit more. And I think he's had a few games where he's had multiple blocks, and then they've come in clutch moments on bigger guys, which again is like I guess gives proof to the fact that he truly is 6'6" with like a pretty long wingspan. So he's just a guy who I think is better in bigger moments, and that's shown defensively, although it is just regular season right now.
Couldn't agree more. Moving on from Cade, the next guy I want to talk about is Ausar Thompson. And you had an excellent article released last week
Thank you.
just detailing his game day routine, which I absolutely loved. That's kind of the insights I feel like fans don't really get. So, guys, I
Hmm.
will have the link to that article specifically in the description, as well as just a link to all Hunter's work to check
Appreciate
out.
you.
But this article, I absolutely loved it. And because Asar is just such an intriguing person to me.
Hmm.
The sense I get is that he's like he comes across a little bit shy, but just like a basketball junkie. Like, what was it like, or what's it been like, kind of getting to know him just in a professional sense, and the type of person and I guess player he is.
Yeah, he was another person who I would say I've gotten to get pretty close with pretty quickly on the team, and it has to do with the fact that we are both from the Bay Area. We have mutual friends, and so he does kind of, I guess, come off as shy sometimes, but he's another person who talks a lot. He's if he sees something that he wants to speak up on, he definitely will. And it's funny because a lot of conversations we have aren't necessarily about basketball. He's just a pretty intellectual guy to be 21, I would say. And to the point of him being a hoop junkie though, like he's really intense about improving himself. So there was one game I came in the locker room and he was on his phone, and I know he watches his brother sometimes, especially since they're on the West Coast. The games are usually like later for them, and so sometimes he'll watch his brother. But this time he was like intensely looking at the phone. I looked up the Rockets schedule; they weren't playing that night, and I asked him what he was watching, and he was already watching film on himself. So I think
Crazy.
he wants to be good so bad. He's usually one of the last people kind of in the practices and shoot arounds with Fred Vincent working on his jumper. So his work ethic is there, and he really seems like he wants to be good really bad.
Yeah, I get that sense just as a fan, and that's why like it is so good to see him back on the court.
Hmm.
Because you don't want to see that kind of health scare for like anyone, let alone a pro athlete or that kind of thing. But just there's that little bit extra of like Asar. I just feel like the Thompson twins in particular, like they
Hmm.
live and breathe basketball. Like they went to overtime elite where like it's just basketball. Like
Yeah.
it's just like, and just the way Asar plays the game, it's like I just feel like he is such a hoops junkie. And so to see him back on the court this season, I think is such a
Hmm.
blessing and so cool. Um, and it's cool to get that insight as well. That because yeah, like I said, just from my point of view, all the way over here in Australia, he seems like a bit more reserved. But obviously, that's just maybe when the cameras are rolling. So that's super cool. And he did have, and this was in your article. He that was kind of after that. One of the best games I think he's had as a pro against. I think was it
Hmm.
Miami. 19 points.
Yes, I think that was a game against Jimmy, and yeah.
Yeah. So he's been awesome. I guess just off the back of that, Fred Vincent obviously been working
Mhm.
with Asar a lot just from what we see, but um, and I know there's plenty of other coaches who help with the skill development, but what's Fred Vincent been like just around some of these younger guys and working on their jump shots and that kind of thing?
It's usually a trio, I wanna say, of Asar, Jaden, and Ron who work with Fred after practices and shoot arounds. And he's really particular. He'll have tape set up on the ground for where he wants their feet to be. He'll If he doesn't like the base of their shot on certain releases, even if the shot goes in, he'll kind of make them come back, and he'll explain to them why he's doing these things. So he's really particular, and they do a lot of like data collection and like analytics on the shots, even in the practice facility. So they're pretty detailed, I would say. And Fred, he's another person who I think loves basketball and loves trying to help players reach their potential.
No, that's so cool to hear. Um, like because you could see the changes already. Like we get all
Yeah,
the clips from yourself and the other beat reporters, but like you're just seeing it. Like Asar's jumper, even when you can sometimes see he might not have the confidence in every single shot, like it just looks so much better.
yeah,
Just the form and that kind of thing. And I think Ron Holland's jumper is coming around recently, after a bit of a struggling start. So it's and obviously Jaden Ivey's is much improved as well. So that's really cool to see. The next guy I want to ask you about is Malik Beasley.
yeah.
Just like what a signing, first of all. Just
Hmm.
been absolutely incredible on the court, exceeded my expectations. Like it's blown them out of the park. But another guy, like when I talk to some people in and around the organization, like you just hear how much of an impact he's had in terms of culture, in terms of vibes, leadership, a guy for the young guys to kind of look for just like energy when things aren't flowing the
Right,
right way. It feels like to me, like when the Pistons need a bucket, like there's Cade, but if the other team's on a 7-0 run, like I feel like Malik Beasley's the guy that's going to hit that three to kind of stop the momentum and start it for the Pistons. Like, but just kind of off the court, what have you seen from him before we dive into on the court?
yeah. That was a great point though about his ability to hit shots when other teams are on runs. I was thinking about that in Phoenix, but he actually is like a little. He can be a bit more reserved until you kind of get to know him a little bit. But he's all like with his teammates and stuff. He's super competitive. He They have shooting. Him and Fontecchio have shooting competitions. Wendell is in those sometimes too, but they'll have like shooting competitions after practice. And I don't think either one of them really gets the best of the other, but they're all really vocal, and wanting to be the best, and then they'll let the other person know that they got the best of them some like when they do. But he's super competitive. I would say probably one of the more competitive guys on the team. I would imagine on the planes he's probably trying to figure out ways to be competitive with the guys.
Yeah.
So he's cool. He has a lot of personality too.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a guy that just through social media, it seems like he's definitely quite vocal. And I think this team
Yeah.
has sorely, like, I think all three vets have been awesome additions, but Malik kind of stands out the most because of his on court play paired with kind of the
Hmm.
vibe he brings. Because I
Yeah.
think last season, like, they Pistons, the vets last season, like Bojan Bogdanovic, uh, Monte Morris, and Joe Harris, like, I think that they were all fine, but Monte Morris could just never get on the court. And then Boyan and Joe Harris, I just not sure about their impact in the locker room. Sure, they were very professional, but this season, like this trio of vets, particularly Malik, I think have been a much needed kind of uh, just an injection of kind of
Hmm.
leadership and vibes for this team that they've desperately needed. I wanted to, you brought up Simone Fontecchio there. I
Yeah.
wasn't planning to ask you about him, but like, um, have you just got any insight into what he's like just as a person? Like even just what you see around practice? Because he kind of intrigues me.
Yeah, there's been a couple road trips where he's been the one who's in charge of the music. So he's
Really? I've
yeah,
noticed that.
he likes music. He'll like to be playing his music. And so yeah, he's like he talks a lot too. He's also really competitive, but it's just funny that he was like the one who on a team full of like 23-year-olds. I'm actually not even sure how old Simone is, but I know he's older than most of the guys, and he was the one who was like, "Nah, I'm on music today" a couple times. So he's a big fan of music, I would say.
I love it. Yeah, I think he's like 28 or 29. So
Hmm.
that's so good.
Yeah,
Man, this is all. I'm getting so much stuff out of this. This is crazy.
yeah,
So much
I
insight.
got you. I got
Um,
you.
Moving on, I wanted to just talk about Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren, kind of
Hmm.
in the same topic here. There's been a lot of talk about the center position this season, particularly in like the first 20 games. It's died down a little bit, but Jalen Duren has been better since he came back from. He missed a game about a week ago, and he's been better in the past three. But um, there was some moments where I was a bit concerned just about his confidence, and then maybe I was thinking that was playing into just some of the lack of effort's a bit harsh, but just forgettable moments for him on the court. Um, just because I feel like this kind of situation he's in where Stu so clearly has been absolutely elite defensively. Like I'm going to get
Hmm.
some stuff out on him later in the week. But
Nice.
what have you seen just from Jalen Duren's, I guess, confidence and that kind of mentality? Have you seen a shift or anything recently, or just from the whole season overall?
It seems like his work has been consistent. He hasn't at any point in the season not worked out, and he does live reps with coaches. So he works hard. He's been consistent in that. And I think one thing for him is just simplifying the game usually. So if there's a lot, I actually think he's a better passer than I expected. I wasn't really aware of that. I think he can do pretty well in DHOs and make reads, and that can be useful for sure. But sometimes just simplifying the game for him, which I think Cade does a good job of, as far as come set this screen. You know, I'm going to throw you a lob. It's up to you to go get it and finish it. And crashing the glass. So I think those are two things that he can really control to continue to play this way, as far as like giving effort in areas he knows he can be successful in. I mean, even in all areas, but especially areas you know you can be successful in, as far as crashing the offensive glass and setting hard screens so you can free either Cade up or free yourself up for lobs. And so when he's around the rim and really engaged that way, and you can see it early if he makes a couple buckets, if he gets a couple dunks, if he can like muster up like some screams because of those dunks, like he's gonna be more engaged for the rest of the game. So I think getting him involved early and allowing him to feel established in the game and continuing to keep it simple are good things for him.
No, excellent points. I couldn't agree more. The passing, like that is a real kind of skill for him that separates him from your traditional kind of rim running big.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I still, I'll be honest, I have been disappointed at times this season with JD. But that's the reason I still hold out hope, because it's like if he can figure out the consistency on defense,
Yeah.
like that passing, like that elevates him in that kind of role. But um, yeah, like it's good to see him. I feel like the Phoenix game was a perfect example of what you
Hmm.
said, where he got some big dunks early, the energy was high, and it was sustained for the entire game. And um, no fan can question his effort in the
Yeah.
in that kind of game. But just want to get your quick thoughts on Isaiah Stewart as well, because like I said, I think he's been incredible defensively. It's not that he wasn't good prior to this season, but I feel like he's gone
Hmm.
to another level. Um, and I think this team, they had a big win in Phoenix, but I still think they miss him when he's not on the floor. Just thoughts on his game and season so far.
Yeah, I think he lacks like fear on the court in a really good way, and I think he's not afraid to get dunked on. He's not afraid to switch out and occasionally guard the perimeter if he has to. So I think his lack of fear of being maybe on a highlight or anything like that allows him to be really engaged defensively, and so he's going for all these blocks. He's trying to guard as best as he can. Sometimes when he is switched on in the perimeter, so I think he's just like a max effort guy. He's someone else I've gotten pretty close with on the team, and he's just a really good person. And I think that's another thing that contributes to it because he's like, if someone gets beat on their assignment, I want to be there to not let them down. And I think he's just like a super loyal person, and he feels really committed to the team and not wanting to let anyone down, which probably also contributes to the like max effort that he gives every time.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Like, I don't obviously know him personally or anything, but there's a sense of like unselfishness with the way he plays defensively and at both ends of the court, which I think like is so valuable for this team. I got a couple more questions here. Jaden Ivey
Hmm.
came back from 2-game absence and looked like the Jaden Ivey from the first 20 games of the season.
Hmm.
Near triple-double, crashing the offensive glass. How much do you think that knee soreness was bothering him and kind of fed into him struggling for a couple of weeks before taking some time off?
Yeah, he said post game after a couple nights ago in Phoenix that it did linger a bit. He didn't really specify how long, but I think that could have contributed to some of the issues and maybe him not feeling as explosive. And it was, I think, a good 2 games off for him to be able to rebound and kind of get the rest that he needed and the treatment necessary to be able to play at this level again.
Yeah, he just looked like he had that confidence back in the way he was playing. Like there's just something about him, the way he handles the ball and he drives it. There's a certain confidence he sometimes plays with, which I thought he had in Phoenix and I didn't think he had in the 6 or 7 games prior to being out. But like him crashing the offensive glass, like that's something I really hope we see going forward. Particularly when they play teams like with a center like Nurkic, or it might be
Mhm.
hard with Anthony. Is Anthony Davis playing tonight? Or do you know?
I think he's like he's day to day. It feels like every game,
Okay.
but he
Day to
usually
Davis.
plays. Yeah, day to day is funny, but it seems like
Okay.
he usually plays unless he's like doubtful or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because someone commented said him and LeBron are out, and I'm like, I don't know if they're trolling or not, but
I need to
uh,
check that out for sure.
that was like they could just be trolling me. But kind of got off topic there. But against those kind of centers, like I kind of really like seeing him attack the offensive glass.
Hmm.
Like he, especially in that first quarter, he was making so many plays.
Yeah.
Um, Final one here, JB Bickerstaff. He just seems like an awesome interview, like post game in the press conferences. What's it been like, I guess, getting to know him and interviewing him on a pretty regular basis?
Yeah, he's really cool as well. I think I probably am overusing that word, really cool, those words, but it just is the organization as a whole. It seems like has good people, and he's someone who at practice he says what's up to everybody before we start interviews and things. So he's going to give thoughtful quotes. He's not really going to necessarily do coach speak. He understands, I think, our jobs, and not that he like says things that he doesn't believe or anything, but he usually goes into detail about things that we're asking, which is really helpful, obviously. And he's just another good person. Seems like he has their best interests in mind at all times. And I think he has a lot of experience with younger guards too, as far as Donovan Mitchell. I mean, they're not super young, but Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and now being able to work with Cade. So uh, yeah, he's a good guy as well.
I love it. No, I mean, I don't want to bash the previous coach, but it's been awesome to have JB here and just
Hmm.
experience. You can sense the buy-in and his kind of commitment to developing the team the right way and establishing a culture, which I think was really needed for this young team. Because, I mean, this isn't even about Monty Williams. Like this is Cade's third coach in 4 years,
Right.
Jaden and Duren's third coach in 3 years. Like that's a lot to like put on younger guys, and it can't be good for development. But it feels like JB's clearly a guy that's going to be here for a while.
And it also, to a certain degree, feels like he approaches it not necessarily as like a dictatorship or anything. It's more of
Yeah,
a partnership with the players where I think they feel comfortable coming to him. And if he's obviously not out there, so there are things he's not able to see. And I think the players feel comfortable communicating with him in that way because he listens and will try to adapt to what they're saying.
definitely. And that man does not miss on coaches' challenges. Like,
Yeah.
bro, he's got to be at like 90%. I can think of one he's hasn't gotten successful. Every other time, it is like crazy.
Yeah,
I don't
he's
know if
pretty
there's a
good.
stat, but like,
I'm gonna try to keep up with that now. He's pretty good.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know if there's a way you can find stats on it, but like, man, there has to be a way to get something. Like, he is on the money so often, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
he's pretty good.
um, Now I'd probably get in trouble from Pistons fans if I didn't ask you something about trade rumors and the trade deadline. Um, the trade deadline is kind of creeping up on us. It's February 6th, which is about a month and a half away.
Hmm.
I'm just going to throw this at you. You can answer it however you like. What do you think is the Pistons' approach for this trade deadline? Or what do you think Pistons fans could potentially expect in the next month or so?
Yeah, I'll definitely preface it with saying I'm not sure. I'm not like too aware of the happenings yet, but um, I think with the injuries and Isaiah going down a little bit, they still haven't really been able to see Bobby too much outside of his time in the G League. And Asar is still kind of working back and getting his conditioning and wind and everything. So I think there have been certain unknowns on the team that might make the front office a bit more patient. Although they do have, I believe it's 14 million going in of cap space going into the trade deadline. So I think they'll be able to do things if they want. But I think it really depends on this next month and how guys progress from injuries and how they like what they're seeing from them and how the team continues to mesh as a whole. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of allowed their guys to continue to grow and mesh together without making any major changes.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I am because like we said off the top, like they're kind of trending a little bit ahead of expectations, and it feels like Trajan with the crazy off season he had, like having
Yeah.
like 3 weeks or something to hire a coach, do the
Hmm.
NBA draft and a free agency. Like I could definitely see him just maybe looking to capitalize on that cap space, but just nothing kind of major because things are just trending in the right direction. Um,
And I've had a few conversations with him, and he just seems really calculated. I don't think he's the type of person to make any knee jerk reactions, I guess, just like, oh, I need to do this to get it done or anything. He seems just really calculated in how he approaches things. He freed up about like 4 million by waiving Paul, signing Javante McCoy, waiving him, and then signing Paul again. So in the moment, that might have looked like a what's going on move, but like he saved the team money, and so he does things that are just really I keep coming back to the word calculated. So I think he'll be someone who doesn't just make a panic move or anything like that. There's no reason to panic right now. So
no, for sure. Like Pistons Twitter was having a meltdown for about 24 hours there. Man. I was like,
yeah.
because were you kind of like a little bit what's going on here? Okay, I don't know why that thumbs down's popping up.
That's funny. Um, yeah, I wasn't familiar with exactly what he was doing until John Hollinger he was in an NBA front office, and he's really knowledgeable about the workings of contracts and how that affects the cap space for specific teams. So he had a good article that I was able to learn from, and um, that was kind of as I learned, that was when I learned that Trajan made like a smart move there.
Yeah, no, it's a interesting 24 hours just for the fan base
Yeah.
and people being like, he's got no idea what he's doing. Like it's I think a lot of Pistons fans are so scarred from previous, decisions that they
Yeah, I mean,
immediately they think the worst.
rightfully so. Probably it's been a tough couple of years, so I understand.
um, Hunter, that's gonna do it, my man. Thank you so much for joining me today and
Of
taking
course.
the time between shoot around and the Lakers game tonight. Please tell the people where they can find you, and all the amazing work you're putting out for the Athletic.
I appreciate you. It was fun chopping it up. I always love talking hoop, and obviously you definitely know your stuff. So, my Twitter and Instagram is just at Hunt Patterson with an underscore. Um, I am with the Athletic. I didn't mean to be too on brand. This is like the only hoodie I brought on this trip, and my thermostat in here doesn't work, so I had to kind of keep warm. But yeah, I'm with the Athletic, so all of my stories are there. I try to write as consistently as possible about as many things as possible relating to the team. So it's been a lot of fun and a blessing so far.
It's a dope hoodie. I rate it.
Thank you.
So,
yours
but
is
yeah,
yours is fire too. I like that.
I appreciate you, bro. Well,
Yeah.
I will have a link to your socials. That awesome article I really enjoyed about Ausar, as well as just a
Thank you.
link to all your work at the Athletic in the description. But that's gonna do it for today's shows, guys. Please like, subscribe, drop a comment, support the channel in any way you can if you feel the need. But as always, go Pistons. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below.